Hey, everybody. You are about to hear a brief retelling of the movie The Mandela Effect. Enjoy the movie. Brendan, a video game designer, says that scientists place rats in mazes to explore how creatures utilize memory to learn, adapt, and grow by creating an internal map of their surroundings. He always reads these studies since he employs those concepts to construct his games, and he points out that mankind would be lost without memory. Brendan travels to the beach with his wife Claire and their daughter Sam one day. They enjoy a great time together, and after a brief nap, Sam decides to go shell hunting with her Curious George toy, swearing not to get in the water. However, when Sam is captivated by the shells, the monkey is taken away by the waves, so she jumps into the ocean to recover it. Unfortunately, the sea is too strong for her, and she never returns. The family extends their full support to the parents throughout the funeral, but Brendan and Claire remain distraught. Claire still believes this isn't true, and Brendan can't function since he's always sobbing in his daughter's room. Claire thinks it's time to move and begins packing Sam's room a few months later. Brendan, on the other hand, isn't ready yet and quickly flips out, begging his wife to put everything back in place. When he goes to get his daughter's favorite books, he discovers that the title Berenstain Bears is written with an A, despite the fact that he recalls it with an E. Brendan can't sleep later that night, and he hears a disturbance. He walks to the kitchen with a bat in hand and almost attacks, but it's just his brother-in-law Matt looting the fridge. They converse over a late-night snack, and Brendan inquires about the book title, happy to learn that Matt, too, felt it was written with E. Brendan explores the internet for an answer since he still can't sleep and discovers millions of articles about it. Many others share his recollection and believe it is a conspiracy, but Brendan finally discovers the Mandela Effect, a phenomena in which a large number of individuals shares false memories. It is frequently attributed to different timelines or parallel worlds, and its name derives from the fact that many people believe Mandela died in jail. Brendan discovers a family photo on their refrigerator the next morning as Claire prepares to return to work. When Brendan inquires about the photograph, Claire reveals that it was shot at the Griffith Observatory. Brendan, on the other hand, recalls capturing the exact identical photo at the Pacific Science Center. Claire dismisses his confusion and returns to work. Brendan then shows Matt what he's discovered on the Mandela Effect, including a detailed explanation and several instances, such as Mandela's death, Darth Vader's remark, and the spelling of Looney Tunes. Brendan believes they are hopping between different realms or in a simulation, but Matt dismisses him. Brendan delves deeper into the phenomena over the next few days, seeing movies on topics ranging from string theory to the idea of a real matrix. Brendan takes copious notes and gets preoccupied with the issue, most likely to divert his attention away from his sadness. Brendan goes to a priest one afternoon to inquire why God would take the life of a youngster like Sam. The priest emphasizes that Sam's death was not God's purpose or wish, it was simply a question of free choice, which many regard to be God's greatest gift to humanity. Brendan comes home and begins researching free will as part of his fixation. Brendan subsequently meets with Matt again and continues to bug him over the matter. Matt reveals that he spoke with a neurologist friend of his, and she explained that our brains aren't perfect, memories are confused, and there are numerous gaps that are filled by external information. Brendan, on the other hand, is obstinate and refuses to acknowledge it can simply be a coincidence. Later, over dinner, Claire admits she's worried about Brendan since he's been so withdrawn recently, and she asks he reveal his problems. Brendan asks Claire to describe the Monopoly man, and she adds that he wears a monocle, but when she looks at the game box, she notices that the small man doesn't have anything on his face. Brendan then pulls out Sam's Curious George book, claiming that the monkey had a tail in the images and even swearing that Sam's plushie had one as well. Claire objects to the exploitation of their daughter's death in this manner, but Brendan persists, pointing out that Claire claimed after the burial that it didn't feel genuine. Claire snaps and scolds Brendan for refusing to move on and instead putting his pain into this stupid preoccupation when he starts talking about world shifting. Later, Brendan and Claire go on a double date with Matt and his new boyfriend. Brendan is buried in contemplation and hardly paying attention to the talk, so he attempts to flee to the bar, but Matt tells him that he and Claire must support one another. Brendan acknowledges this and returns to the table. Brendan, on the other hand, rushes back on the computer as soon as he gets home to explore the simulation hypothesis, which claims we live in a computer-programmed world. Brendan's notes accumulate, and he begins to maintain a board, determined to locate proof of a parallel reality in which Sam is still alive. He examines videos of notable individuals discussing the issue, such as Elon Musk and Neil deGrasse Tyson, and ultimately comes across the name Roland Fuchs, who is said to be working on a method to establish the simulation. However, the video he discovers on websites is no longer functional, therefore he must resort to pirate sites that retain a backup of it. The file he downloads is damaged, but he is able to repair it using special software. The video depicts Dr. Fuchs giving a lecture about simulation theory, but it is damaged again, leaving Brendan with nothing. Brendan, unable to let up, seeks for Fuchs' current workplace and shoots a video message for him. Brendan waits days for a response from Fuchs, so he flies to the university to speak with the doctor in person. Fuchs, on the other hand, is too busy and doesn't have time to listen to a random fan's babbling. Later that night, Brendan attempts to be a better spouse by getting playful with Claire, but he stops in the midst because he hears Sam shouting for him. Claire, frustrated, suggests he consult a bereavement counselor. Instead of seeking a psychologist, Brendan goes up at Fuchs' house the next day and gets him to give him a few minutes of his time. Fuchs says that the Mandela effect is just an example of false memories, but he also believes that they are breadcrumbs left by the simulation we live in following a system upgrade. Brendan reminds her that if reality is just computer code, he should be able to hack it, but Fuchs dismisses this and brings him to the university. They explore the prospect of the world existing just because a conscious entity observes it on their trip there. Brendan compares it to video games, where regions are only loaded when a player enters them. The rest of the time, such areas do not exist. Instead of hacking the simulation, he should overload it in order to overload the CPU. Only a highly powerful machine could accomplish such a feat, and Fuchs discloses that this university possesses a quantum computer. When Fuchs is teaching how to input a code, they are interrupted by Dr. Manning, who does not approve of Brendan's presence. The two return to the doctor's house right once, where Fuchs explains that he believes the simulation attempted to stop him because he is a defect in the system, and cautions Brendan that ideas are dangerous things. Brendan is concerned about whether the simulation is for fun or for power, equating the being behind it to political and corporate power. Later that night, Brendan has a nightmare about Sam's death and awakens when he hears her pleading for him again. He goes inside Sam's room and notices a human shadow that glitches and disappears. He attempts to clear his head by going for a drive, but he can't stop visualizing the environment as a massive chain of code linked to a quantum computer. He eventually falls asleep in the car and wakes up in a random downtown alley. He hears a horrific high-pitched sound and yells in pain as reality begins to glitch, only to blink and wake up in his customary bed. When Brendan walks out of the room, he is surprised to discover Sam in her own room, and Claire hurries in to drag her to the restroom. When he attempts to pursue them, he only discovers his wife brushing her teeth. Brendan believes he is going insane, and Claire attempts to console him. Brendan then goes to the library to get some books on quantum computing and begins working on a code that may overload the simulation. Brendan will be coding exclusively for the next 3 days, which disturbs Claire. Sam comes into her parents' room one night and hops into bed because she had a nightmare. Brendan sleeps blissfully next to her, but when he wakes up in the morning, the bed is empty. Brendan rushes downstairs, thinking it was a dream, but Sam is there as if nothing happened. Brendan contacts everyone he knows to corroborate his suspicions. No one recalls Sam dying, ergo reality has been altered. He attempts to talk to Fuchs about it, but he doesn't return his calls. Brendan believes the simulation gave him his daughter back so he would stop creating the code, but he doesn't care since he is relieved to have Sam back. The family spends a lot of time together and is extremely happy until one night when Claire wakes up in a horrible state after a terrible nightmare. She insists she's all right, but the next day Brendan discovers the meal on fire and Claire staring off into space. Brendan decides to cheer her up by taking the family to paint pottery together. Suddenly, cracks form on his pot, and Claire becomes enraged, smashing everything on the floor just because they aren't utilizing the color she likes. Brendan returns home and attempts to put Claire to bed, but she keeps gazing at Sam and freaks out, stating the girl shouldn't be there. Brendan, concerned that the reality change is making his wife ill, asks Matt to watch Sam and rushes to Fuchs' house, only to be met by the doctor's wife. He apparently removed himself 2 months ago since he was not taken seriously by the scientific community. Brendan believes he saw Fuchs only 2 days ago until a fracture emerges in the glass, which he interprets as a sign from the simulation. Brendan goes home, determined to put things right, and resumes work on the code. He also films a video for his family in case the simulation kills him, as he believes it did Fuchs. While Brendan is at work, Matt looks after Claire, who has gone catatonic. When the code is complete, Brendan returns to the university and attempts to access the quantum computer, only to be denied by Manning, who attempts to contact security. Brendan leaps on him to stop him, but he pushes too hard, and Manning smashes his head on the floor, instantly dying. Brendan feels terrible, but he accepts Manning's card key and continues on his way. Brendan inserts his code into the computer via a USB stick and sees the numbers flash while the computer lights flicker. Brendan runs outside as the machine begins to emit strange noises, only to realize that the parking lot is vacant and his car has vanished. In an instant, he finds himself on a bus, and he receives a call from his wife, who informs him that she is not feeling well. He observes a passenger glitching as she walks through the bus floor, and a couple adjacent has glitching faces as well. Brendan gets off the bus and rushes across the city, seeing all sorts of anomalies. The time of day changes frequently, the trees change colors, and there are 2 moons in the sky. Brendan eventually returns home and rushes to pull his wife and children tight as the atmosphere around them glitches wildly. Claire's face glitches as well, and she screams in agony as the 2 moons crash in the sky before everything goes dark. The code then shows on the screen as the universe reboots itself from the beginning of time, passing through dinosaurs, lost civilizations, wars, and the usual pivotal periods in human history. Brendan is relieved to be back on the beach with his family when the reboot finally ends. When Sam proposes going shell hunting, Brendan insists her leave the curious George behind, saving her life.